You thought you knew the full story. Wait until you see what the autopsy really revealed. The newly unsealed autopsy report of Frank Fritz uncovers a string of unsettling findings that were quietly tucked away. From hidden internal injuries to surprising toxicology results, these disturbing details paint a very different picture of his final hours. In this video, we'll break down exactly what they tried to hide and what it all could mean for understanding the truth. Next, we will show you the behind-the-scenes thing that no one shows. A bearded dreamer with a laugh that could charm a rusty tractor out of a farmer's barn, Frank Fritz was the king of the backroads. From the dusty antique stores of Iowa to the bright lights of American living rooms, Frank Fritz, the founder of American Pickers, transformed forgotten artifacts into treasures valued at millions of dollars. He hunted history in a white Sprinter van with Mike Wolfe, and his love of neon signs and vintage motorcycles made him a folk hero in the heartland. But heroes fall and empires fall. By 2024, Frank's name was once again in the news, but not because of a unique discovery, but rather because of a tragic last loss. They claimed that he died at the age of 60 after suffering a stroke. A single document, its pages packed with secrets, can tell a different story in a cluttered office. Malnutrition, bed sores, dehydration. These don't indicate a peaceful death. They are hints of a catastrophe that nobody anticipated. My name is Tim David, and I'm on a quest to uncover the truth about Frank Fritz's last days. My journey starts in the small American town where his story started. Frank Fritz spent his life searching for the kind of modest charm that can be found in the streets of Davenport, Iowa, a small town that is peaceful under a gray October sky. A place where dusty attic treasures and rusted barn finds conceal history. American Pickers' bearded charmer, Frank Fritz, is no longer with us, 60 years old and dead. On October 1st, 2024, 2 weeks ago, his longtime friend and co-star Mike Wolfe shared a touching remembrance on Instagram. The reason? They said it was a stroke. However, I can't get rid of the feeling that there's more to this story as I sit in my disorganized home office with a PDF of Frank's death certificate glowing on my laptop screen. The moment that changed everything is yet to come. The text is clinical and stark. Late sequela of cerebral infarction, a stroke brought on by cerebral vascular disease, was the cause of death. Crohn's disease, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and aortic stenosis are contributing factors. For a man who once traveled the country in a white Sprinter van and whose contagious laugh filled living rooms everywhere, it's a somber list of ailments. However, what really stops me cold are the secondary findings: malnutrition, dehydration, bed sores. These are more than just stroke marks. They imply neglect, a gradual disintegration that is inconsistent with Frank Fritz's persona as the man who could converse with anyone about tattoos and vintage motorcycles. How did this happen to a man who had a $6 million estate and was surrounded by admirers and friends? I'm starting where it all started, the Quad Cities, the center of Frank's universe, because I need answers. The Mississippi River sparkles in the dim autumn sunlight as I pull into Davenport, a 3-hour drive from my Chicago apartment. In neighboring Savannah, Illinois, Frank Fritz finds his antique shop is still open, but I'm going to a diner where locals claim his friends still gather. The place is filled with old Route 66 signs and pictures of vintage cars, and it smells of nostalgia and fried eggs. As the weight of Frank's absence descends upon the room, I slip into a booth with my notebook open. One of Frank's closest confidants was a wiry man in his 50s named Jerry Jandreau, who had a faded Harley tattoo on his forearm. With the sting of finality, he assisted in organizing the auction of Frank's cherished motorcycle collection following his passing. His sorrowful eyes reveal Frank's last years, a gradual decline from the energetic picker he once was. Now, the truth that was hidden will be spoken openly. Frank was brutally shackled to a bed after suffering a stroke in 2022, which took away his freedom. Hospice and rehabilitation came next, a roller coaster of hope and despair. But even in his weakest moments, a spark would ignite. A glint when someone mentioned his rare Indian bike, a smile when someone mentioned a '57 Chevy. But there was less fighting. Every bite was a struggle due to Crohn's disease, a chronic tormentor that caused his body to lose weight it couldn't afford. The autopsy's reference to bed sores and malnourishment bothers me. Although there were caregivers present and their presence was recorded, Frank's stubbornness was a powerful force in and of itself. His pride was a barrier that no one could completely overcome, and he would reject water and push away feeding tubes. However, bed sores reveal a different tale. Hours of immobility and skin rupturing under the silent weight of neglect. The Scott County Courthouse, a brick fortress of bureaucracy where secrets linger in yellowed files, is the destination of the trail. A will that Frank signed in 2023 has caused a legal quagmire and is currently destroying his legacy. It distributes his $6 million estate, which includes his beloved motorcycles, farmhouse, and antique shop, among a select group of devoted friends and caregivers. William "Bill" Fritz, his father, contests the will from Texas, arguing that Frank's mental state was too impaired to make a decision. After the stroke, a court declared Frank incompetent and appointed a guardian, but people who witnessed him sign swear he was clear and even made jokes about his 1969 Harley. The documents, which I was given by a nervous clock, suggest a broken family. Bill rarely visits, and his relationship with Frank is more a recollection than a reality. The pickers and dreamers who lived on his street were Frank's real relatives. A moment of silence is provided by the banks of the Mississippi, which carries the echoes of Frank's life. In Davenport, the wounds from his altercation with his brother-in-arms, Mike Wolfe, on American Pickers are still visible. Frank left the show in 2020 after suffering from Crohn's disease and back surgery. Mike's wound was exposed in an unvarnished interview, and the silence continued into 2021. However, a reunion in 2023 brought them together and restored their friendship. As the world faded away, Mike was there on September 30th, 2024, in a hospice room filled with finality, his hand clasped around Frank's. The silent elegance of that moment lingers in the mind like a picture. Now the twist that will shock everyone will come to light. A gastroenterologist in Chicago has a desk full of journals that contain the secrets to Frank's suffering, and her office is filled with the smells of coffee and antiseptic. She explains that Crohn's disease is a thief, causing inflammation in the gut and depriving the body of nutrients. Another layer is added by a stroke, which makes food an enemy by choking the ability to swallow. Frank's lungs were choked by chronic obstruct and his heart was strained by aortic stenosis. Every breath was a victory, but dehydration and bed sores. These can be avoided whether the patient is too obstinate to accept it or the indications of care are faltering. Frank was both, and even as his body failed, his independence remained a burning flame. The hospital in Davenport is a low-rise structure with quiet hallways and ghostly staff movements. The specifics are concealed by sealed documents, but a former nurse's rumors describe a man who resisted treatment with the same ferocity as his illness. Water was turned away, feeding tubes were refused, and Frank's will was a barrier that no caregiver could overcome. However, bed sores point to mistakes, times when a body was too still or when checks weren't sufficient. When viewed through a shadowed source, the logs demonstrate diligence, but there are still holes and minor mistakes that left marks on Frank's skin. The mosaic begins to take shape, ragged but distinct. Crohn's disease, COPD, a slow burn, and a failing heart were the causes of Frank Fritz's demise. Although the stroke was the end, the malnourishment and bed sores describe a man torn between obstinate pride and a frail system. His life, which is loved by many but understood by few, is reflected in the ongoing struggle over his will. A glimmer of hope, a connection restored before the dark, is provided by his reconciliation with Mike. The autopsy report is only one aspect of a bigger picture as the laptop screen fades back in my office. America loved the chase due to Frank Fritz, a hunter of history who saw the value in rust. No coroner's pen can erase the legacy of his messy and human story, which endures in the artifacts he preserved and the hearts he touched.